Hello, everyone, and welcome to my very, very early morning live stream, or very late, depending on where you are. I'm ArtisticLayman, and today I'm having a chat with someone I recently met, named who calls himself Terrance Inkmaster. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing very, very well on this Sunday.
Oh, yeah. And have you
Yeah,
is it a big difference for you? Is how they had service already, or is it just early morning for you?
early morning.
Yeah, it's just our schedules just couldn't align properly, and so today is our only time we could meet at this point. So,
Oh, yes.
and thank you for your patience. And so basically, I actually, Terrence is someone I've been meeting off and on, or communicating off and on what YouTube, and mainly he wanted to talk about like the subject of my video representation is a lie, and maybe you could explain how. Maybe you could like. I guess you wanted to bring up some subjects connected to that, or you didn't really have questions, or what do you want to start with?
Well, what do I want to start with exactly?
Yeah, like, do you want to start with a subject regarding it, or do you just want to make a quick comment about the video?
Oh, yes. A quick comment. As you heard in the comment section, I invited a couple friends over to watch the premiere of the video because my friends are also Christian. We're huge fans of you and we love your content. We've been watching you since that Steven Universe's Homomaniac propaganda. I think it's a very good video. It's very controversial. People have been saying you're homophobic, you're this, your avatar looks like Coca-Cola can or something. Some weird trash like that.
Yeah, that was it's a very interesting subject. You get a lot of attention.
Very,
You get a lot of attention considering the subject
yeah,
matter.
yes. Boy, yeah, it's a very good video. You brought up some points about how it's a lie and how you don't find it as morally good.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
so you wanted to thank you very much for that. So is there, and you wanted to bring up some other subjects related to it, not just for the video's sake,
Oh yes.
or did you want to go? Did you have that list, or do you want me to go over that list here?
Yeah, I wanted to say a few things before we get started. I'm also a Pentecostal Christian, and I agree with many of the things said in your video. I disagree with LGBT, but I don't side with some of the church's stance and how they portray it, like the Westboro Baptist Church, etc., etc.
Yeah, the
I
West Baptist Church is they're almost like a family cult at this rate, because I mean they always have been. I just don't really they're not like a practical tool. They're like not a practical voice for the Christian church, or even a proper representation of it.
I respect their stance on homosexuality, yes, but the word of the FAG slur is very detestable before me, and they have a lot of non-biblical signs. And he said, and one of their signs says, Obama, God hates Obama. Well, for me, I don't like Obama at all. But I don't think God hates people. He hates the iniquity did.
Right.
Yeah. So, we both disagree. We both disagree with LGBT representation. When I'm not going to be really arguing with you, I just want to share some points. So, let's get into this.
All right, goody. Let's go.
Yeah. My first point: does LGBT representation lower the quality of the cartoon or movie for you?
For me, well, I think I made that point in the video. It's not so much that I mean, in the way I can never really like a character because they're LGBT representation. Because my point is that the representation is not really having a character like that, but to normalize that kind of behavior on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose because unfortunately there's a track record, there seems to be a track record of the point of having that representation is to normalize that behavior on the screen, and as a result, you're always trying to idolize the behavior. It's kind of like the reason why Christian entertainment doesn't work, because they're always trying to make Christianity. They're trying to make a sermon into an entertainment product, and that can work for people who are converted, just not for anybody else.
Well, I've seen more and more LGBT. Well, you're fundamentally a lot older than me, so I think you grew up in the 80s with He-Man, She-Ra, all those cartoons. Am I correct?
Yeah, but the original She-Ra, not the old. Oh, technically, I probably wouldn't have liked She-Ra as earlier, because it was clearly supposed to be the female equivalent of He-Man.
Okay, but I don't really need to do any research from somebody who grew up in that time period to know that there was little to no LGBT representation, no agenda.
Yeah, despite the needs of the creators, because the creators at the time were considered, like, from what I understand, were very artistic types tend to be very more progressive, and so they want more interesting characters and dynamic characters. But I don't think, because even the original creators are looking at the modern She-Ra going, yeah, this is not entertaining, this is not fun at all.
So this brings me to my next point. For me, it affects the quality of the show or movie when it's forced and it makes no sense and it contradicts the world and what they set up. For example, in the Beauty and the Beast remake, they made Yafu. Am I saying that name correctly?
Yeah, Yafu. Oh yeah, the Beauty and the Beast, Yafu.
Yafu, yes, sorry. It made him gay. Some weird reason.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't make sense.
There was no need for, because the original Yafu in the original Disney cartoon was just supposed to be the bumbling sidekick. He's like the I guess the way you say it's like he's the beta male who hangs out with the alpha, hoping that the coolness will rub off on him. And now they made him into someone in the original new movie. They've made him into someone who like secretly wants to be with him, which was really not necessary, because it kind of
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It just ruins the world of the movie, because in those times where Beauty and the Beast is set more like a village when they were settling all that stuff, homosexuality wasn't as welcomed as it is now. It was obscene, it was forbidden. I think you in those times could get killed for stuff like that. Am I correct?
Probably. Although I think there's, because I've never actually, to the truth be told, I've kind of understood people's defense of homosexuality, but I've never understood the overreaction that I often see. Like, I always hear the stories about people disowning their family members because of homosexuality, and I've never understood that reaction, because Christianity commands us to love you. Because maybe the immediate reaction is like a visceral, like innate reaction to that behavior, like some people argue. But I've never understood like this idea that people are supposed to be, oh, you're a horrible monster for doing so. Because I've never. But of course, back in that day, I'm pretty sure the quote unquote homophobic reaction that people experience is a relatively modern invention.
You know, in where I live, I have family in America, and I usually stay there. In the Caribbean, that's where I usually live, and we detest homosexuality very. If you could do some research, there's a place called the Gully where all the homosexual people live, because they were shunned by the society. They were chased out with weapons, guns, armory, a lot of violence. There's a person in Jamaica called Dwayne Jones.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Please, somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But this person that was a cross-dresser, a trans person, he was outed in a party and run down, shot.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I don't understand that reaction to it.
Listen, I don't think it's good. I think it's detestable before God, but who are we to deem somebody that they're not worth? They're not worthy of living.
I mean, it's not like this person committed murder or something. It's just I don't understand that knee jerk that people often express. Although to be fair, I've never actually seen that kind of betrayal except in fiction. But unfortunately, I've only heard about from other stories and indirect stories.
Yes. So, I don't applaud that behavior, that homophobia. Some people get really surprised at me that I will admit that homophobia does exist, because there are a group of people, and any group of people with certain practice and the beliefs, somebody that tests that so much they get willing to commit murder and say awful things, because I believe Christophobia does exist, Islamophobia does exist. I'm not saying the church is rampant, it's just specific churches have their intentions are good, but how they react and how they express their faith is really questionable, in my opinion.
Yeah, the way people talk about homosexuality, you think it was like the same as rape or murder. It just seems unnecessary to do that. I mean, because it's kind of weird. Like, people have a more negative, or some people have a more negative response to homosexuality than they do to like adultery or fornication or, heaven forbid, like.
Exactly, that don't make any sense. If you're gonna be against it all, sexual immorality, I'm all for being against homosexuality. I agree with the people of Jamaica's stance on homosexuality, but it should be as much against homosexuality that they should be against prostitution, adultery. Sorry.
Yeah, that there should be some consistency in that, because it doesn't make sense to have that kind of weird standard for that certain behavior.
Yes, Paul said, I believe, I hope I'm quoting this correctly, if you're gonna follow the law, follow all of the law. Yes, if you're going to be this person, if you're going to be against something, you have to be against everything other than umbrella. Which is idolatry, sexuality, all sexual immorality, pedophilia, bestiality, objective. Yes. And for people who are watching who doesn't know, objectophilia is sexual acts between man and object.
Yeah, that is one of those new recent not mentalities or affections that, or what's the word I'm looking for? The new attractions that people are trying to justify in the modern society. Because that's a behavior that wouldn't have made any sense back in the day.
I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense now. Honestly, my grandma has this saying. It kind of evolves over time, but she said, if your child comes home with somebody of the opposite gender, be happy and jump for joy. Now, you know what she's saying now?
What?
She's saying, if your child comes home with a human being, be happy and jump for joy. And it goes on.
Well, I mean, in a romantic sense, or
with a it doesn't have to do with homosexuality, because she's a very modern person. She keeps up with it.
Yeah, the goalpost keeps shifting about tolerance and love.
Yeah, she's against all this stuff too, but here's what she's saying. She's saying now, if your child comes home with a living thing, be happy and jump for joy.
Oh dear. It's almost like that joke from that Simpsons episode about gay marriage. I mean, I know they exaggerated to that point, but the news, like, Homer was basically got the idea to make money by performing gay marriages, and so eventually he was marrying people with their pets, marrying people with their things, and he said, and the newscaster said, "Well, Homer, aren't you concerned that you're making marriage so useless that anyone can marry anything?" And Homer's like, "Of course not. It has to exist, or does it?"
Oh Lord, the world! I tell you, the world is going way far off. Now they're gonna be normalizing pedophilia as under the LGBT.
I sincerely, I hope that that's the one thing that will not, that's a line we will never cross. I sincerely hope, I kind of have this natural reaction to think that that's the one line that we will not cross, because the idea of an adult and a child together, that's just something that people can't ignore, because at least people could, with homosexuality, can acknowledge two consenting adults.
Two consenting adults, yes, but for me, my pastor said this, quote, "Don't be surprised when unbelievers do such. The Bible tells us, a heart of an unbeliever, cruel and wicked."
Yeah.
Yes,
but take us back to the original subject about how having these images in the cartoon, because in the video I did kind of make the comment that I'm kind of I do somewhat try to be magnanimous of how having gay characters in there. I just don't see I've never had the experience of having a gay character just be like just a character in the background, without being like a secondary character. But I mean, they do exist some there, like in the original, like there was an animated series Batman, like in the, I think it was the animated version of The Killing Joke. They had to make a transition. They talked about like why Batgirl was no longer with Batman, and her best friend assistant was a gay librarian who would ask for dating advice or share dating advice. And he's very clearly a gay character, but he's kind of like a secondary character. It's like he's like almost like a racial stereotype.
Oh, okay. Well, another thing I wanted to talk about on this point. You know the cartoon OKKO?
Oh, yes.
That's the heroes. Yes, it was created by Ian James Cordy.
Oh, yeah.
I said his name right.
Yeah, Rebecca Sugar's boyfriend, right? Or are they still in a couple?
Husband?
Oh, yeah.
Husband.
Oh, yeah.
Husband, I think so. Yes. Under that show, it had Enid, reject Rad, don't get through with Rad. They don't get in a couple or anything. They meet a girl called, and she meets a girl called Red Action, and they kiss in the episode. I shared a link with you.
Oh yeah. In the series, like Ida's like a witch. Like the whole character is like a closet metaphor. Like she's born in a house of scary creatures, but she wants to be a ninja, and I guess being a ninja is like an expression.
Ninja and a witch.
Yeah. She wants to. Yeah, I guess like being a ninja is like her secret like desire that she wants to be. Like there's an episode where she comes out with her parents who like and when they find out that her being a ninja is actually a good thing. Hello.
Oh.
Hello, did I lose you?
Yeah. No, I'm still here.
Oh, well, anyway, there's one episode where like KO and his friend like follow Ida to find out what her life is about, and they treat her ninja-is like a ninja abilities like some first thing. Like they actually say we were so close-minded about you being a ninja, like. And then another episode where he has to tell her spooky friends about it, and the friends are pretty much okay with it, but they reacted to it like her almost like every time it's like almost like a coming out of the closet episode with her.
Oh, and coming out of the closet.
But it's like her metaphor though for that, and it's like it never becomes like a like even the times where it seems kind of flirting with a Red Action Girl. It almost seems like just a friendship expression, but then obviously there's that one episode where. Like Rad is like implying that she likes her, but then it turns out he's just doing it because he doesn't like the prank they pulled on her in the back of the first season. And then they share a kiss, and then Rad's like, they actually share a kiss at the beach, and Rad's like, "Wow, I totally support this." And they're like, "Yeah, we totally support you."
Yeah, that's something I was like saying. I know there's some sort of message with that line. I mean, when my siblings first saw this, they were saying, "Aww." And they were like, yeah, because that's what the cartoon is. It's supposed to desensitize you to things.
And they can't really show the details. I mean, the only time it ever comes up is at the very, very end of the last episode, where it's clear that I'm not sure if that's the way they want to end, or if they really just wanted to speed through because it's oddly enough it was last episode, and it's almost like they're speeding through KO's development as a hero and showing all the possible outcomes of the characters, and it shows her and Red like she apparently Ida has taken over the dojo training people, and there's a scene where they share a kiss at the end. And then that's the end of that. So like it's almost like secondary. Yeah, the very last episode.
Red Action and Enid kissed again.
Yeah, they kiss. And it's very clearly implied that they're a couple, which of course is the kind of the joke, because we never actually see them together. Because what's interesting, they never actually see them together as a couple. We only see them as the kiss there and the kiss there, which is almost like, because it's kind of like almost a good example of their lesbianism never actually being a focus of the story, because that's not why people watch the show.
Not at all. Yeah, it was very strange that Rad didn't end up with Enid.
Yeah, they had a whole joke about them just being like a platonic couple. Like, remember that they had an episode where apparently the whole joke was he had to pretend he was cool when he was younger and he couldn't admit his feelings to her. And so there's a scene at the end, like they portray it as some sort of boxing match where they finally accept the fact that they're friends, and the person who set it up is like a masculine Cupid character. He says, "Perhaps platonic love is the greatest love of all." Which is to say that they were just going to be friends the entire time until the big reveal comes out, which it's a lot better that way, because I was kind of worried that they were going to hook Ida up with her former rival best friend character. What was her name?
British girl.
Melody, or no, what's her name? The woman who's the head of the school. Elodie, that's it. Elodie, the girl who's like almost like a beautiful Sailor Moon almost kind of personality.
Oh,
the girl she lied about, she tricked into a battle match in order to promote herself at Point Academy.
Oh yes.
But that never happened. But that never happened. That was actually very interesting, because they started out as best friends, and then she betrayed her, and then they kind of reconciled and they became friends afterwards, which was kind of adorable.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. Let's get on with my another point. Moving swiftly along. Steven Universe. Now, some things I like to say about Steven Universe, and this is my opinion, it's not fact, it's not proven. Well, it is somewhat proven, but my stance on this is kind of unique. You see that lesbian wedding they did after in Reunited Part 2?
Oh, the wedding scene?
Yeah, the wedding scene. Yeah, that doesn't count as proper LGBT representation, because I don't know, for it to be a same-sex wedding, you have to have sex.
But that's what's a weird thing about the metaphors, because it's kind of like I said in my first video, homomania propaganda, is that there's just so much required for this lesbian metaphor to work. I mean, if Garnet is supposed to be like a metaphor for lesbian relationships, it's a very long stretch of a metaphor, because you have magical alien characters who relationships are literally a fusion together, which is not how relationships work.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Yeah.
The cartoon, because what's interesting, Steven Universe, the characters are aliens who are fused together to become a different person, and this is supposed to be like a metaphor of relationships, but that's not how relationships work.
Oh, that's all.
And so that's where that metaphor is such a.
People have been praising this as, huh?
Oh, they're praising it as what? Although you're still there, I lost you.
Oh, sorry, you were glitching.
Yeah. Discord is not the best way to communicate, but we'll have to compensate for that. But anyway, you were saying that it's being celebrated.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. You were saying that the show that wedding scene is being celebrated.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, well, you were saying that the episode, the relationship is being celebrated as great representation, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
It doesn't make any sense, because people like Lily Orchard, I think you heard of.
He has, or she, whatever he calls himself, he has a very. I mean, on the one hand, he wants like that representation there, but he really has negative attitude. He really does have a negative attitude towards how it's done.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, yes, continue.
Yes. Well, yes. Well, I got maybe that might have to switch to Skype soon. Like, can you check your Skype account to see if my hello message worked?
Yeah, sorry, I'm on a device with limited space, so Skype is not really much of an option.
Okay. Okay. Well. Okay. Okay. We'll just have to stick to a Discord. We'll just have to compensate that. But basically, yeah, it is kind of weird that I don't even know if it really counts as that, even though she's always going to be brought up as like a model of representation. There was actually recently Cartoon Network made a PSA cartoon about tolerance and love, which is have you seen that scene where like a boy, two boys are holding hands and they say when we're old, and one's black and one's white, and the other boy cuts their hands apart. It says
that black people can't marry white. I mean, you saw that cartoon too. It's very on the nose. It's so on the nose. It can give me nosebleeds.
That's the joke. But the joke is that it literally cuts off from them admitting to being in a PSA, but it doesn't make it any better because the whole video is about racism. Because the whole video is about like
racism,
systemic
about homophobia or something.
Well, no, it's about well. The thing is, the whole thing is about systemic racism. But at the very end, Garnet looks at the two boys, says, "You want to get this out of the way in preparation for the wedding," and the boy's like, "Whoa, that's just for the script. We're not doing it in real life." And then Garnet like winks at the camera. It's such a bizarre PSA moment because they can't. I mean, yeah, PSAs were always cringy, but they can't even rip off like GI Joe's or Sonic Says cringe.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, PSAs are just cringy, but it's just it's just so silly.
I don't get that. You should do a video on that.
Yeah. It's almost. I mean, it's how do I do that? It's like I want to deconstruct that, but like. It's like I just play it. It's like there it is. Oh yeah, even
it exposes itself.
Yeah, and Eve Eve in the comment section there, Eve is saying like, "Hey kids, don't be racist." You get Ed to say, "Hey kids, be racist."
Oh boy, that's not
like
you can't even do parody, right?
Well, but that's the thing. I don't. But that's the thing. I don't know if they can. I'm very curious if they were trying to be serious with that, or if they're trying to be joking with that, because it's so on the nose absurd. I can't tell if they were serious. Yes.
It gave me nosebleeds. It was that on the nose.
Yeah, but that's. Yeah, but it's just a bizarre place to be in for the cartoons. Like on the one hand, we it's really weird. We want to treat animation like we want animation to go into deep, interesting topics, but it's like when you make it for propaganda purposes, it just looks so ridiculous.
It's very ridiculous. Sorry, but I can't really hear you. The volume on my volume, it's very max.
Yeah, I gotcha. So, but to go off of that, you mentioned something about Phantom Strider.
Yes, Phantom Strider. Yes, a YouTuber I like pretty much. I really like him. I like his content.
I'm not familiar with. I'm actually not familiar with Phantom Strider. What does he do?
He does He usually do lists about animation, games, stuff like that. And I really love his content. But he did a video about top 10 or top 6 shows that are banned in Africa.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen his work. I think I've seen his video before.
Yeah, that lady linked it in the comment section.
Oh yeah, okay, I see it.
Yeah. Even though I enjoy good amount of the cartoons there, he said something that I disagree with. You could choose. You have choose a sexuality as much as we choose the color of our skin.
Oh, was that his comment, or was that?
Yeah, that's his end thing he usually does.
Yeah, I think I think what he's trying to
send off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think because that's an interesting because that's a discussion that we're never going to have as a society because we seem to think that our sexual attraction, like the people have their sexual attraction their sexual actions as the same way they have their skin color, and it's just well because the whole question of sexual morality requires an action and action of your will, and so it's not really the same as your race.
Yeah, because you can hide your race, you can hide your sex. Anyway, you can hide your race. You cannot hide your race. Sorry, because if you're black, people see you're black, but you can't tell somebody that you're gay. They can never know because people have this stereotypical of gay people being effeminate, which is sometimes true. But if somebody is walking on the street, you cannot really see that they're gay if you don't tell you that they're gay.
Yeah, it's because the Bible defines sexuality or homosexuality as an action. The Bible doesn't really have a notion of homosexuality being just a desire in and of itself, which is always the interesting thing about like what LGBT is. It's like how you feel as opposed to how you're acting.
Very, very true. So yeah, in my personal opinion, the shows that he talked about that were banned in Africa, well, some of them were banned in Kenya. He should have been more specific with the title, because Africa is a continent, not a country, and one show could be banned in this country, but a show could be celebrated in the other country. So I think he should have been specific with the title. I think it was a bit misleading.
Yeah, but to say, I guess it's much easier to say Africa rather than each individual country in Africa.
Than Kenya.
So, let's see. That's like interesting. Your next question is kind of interesting. Would you work on a cartoon with an LGBT character in it?
Yeah, to be honest.
Oh,
yes. Would you?
I guess it depends on how committed I am to the studio. Because I mean, when you're an artist in a studio, you don't really have any say on what's being made. And
not really, no.
I guess I wouldn't really think much about it because that's just the atmosphere I work in. Of course, because there are far worse things to worry about. Because if you're working at Nickelodeon Studios, you're probably making SpongeBob SquarePants for the rest of your life. And if you're working at Cartoon Network, you're working Teen Titans Go for the rest of your life. So, complaining about what you can complaining about what you can and cannot work on is kind of a moot point, depending on if you need to work at the studio. Of course, I guess the more interesting question we made is: would I make a character? Would I make a LGBT character in it? And I kind of would, like, make a story with that. But I would depict it specifically as a person who's dealing with their desires and dealing with this temptation in their life. Because in my work,
overcome it.
Yeah, well, not so much overcome it, but it would be a depiction of a character who actually deals with it as a Christian would deal with it. Because on the one hand, because if a person has those desires, they should know that because like when it comes to the discussion of sin, like all sinful actions are predicated by sinful desires, and the point of the Christian is to not give in to those desires. And so, if I made that kind of story, it would be a character who has those desires and just carries on with them or carries through them, and the dynamics there that come with it.
Wow, just for me to give my thing on. Would you work on a cartoon with LGBT? Probably not, because if you show with LGBT characters on it, you should have your homosexuality in your faith because it's wrong. You should be against it. But if you are passionate about the said project, if I was passionate, I would advise the executive producer, if it's possible for me to work on a different segment of the show instead of writing or artist, because I don't feel my conscience won't be clear with me if I said I wrote in an abomination.
Yeah, you really have to make your own. I for one, if I were working in a studio, I really couldn't have a say in the matter. That's just my personal take on it. But of course, that's a matter of that is a matter of conscience for everyone to follow. But since working in the animation is very rare, you have to probably accept if you have to quit for every single thing like that, you probably will be out of work, especially considering what passes off as what people want to make in the professional animation world these days. So
Hello?
it's a matter of it's a matter of you have to. It's a matter of conscience that you have to decide. Of course, if it were me and I were in a studio and I had to make that, I would like, yeah, it's something I'm gonna have to live with.
Hmm.
But if it were my own
Yes.
if it were my own personal project, that's where I would go because I would never want to I would never want to normalize that behavior to people in my work.
No, not at But yes, going to my last point, let me just answer this so everybody can hear. The network advises you to put LGBT characters in your show. Will you fight for or leave the project? For me, I would just make a character fundamentally asexual because that's the only sexuality in the LGBT I fundamentally agree with. You're not sexually attracted to anyone, but you're not a romantic, because there is a difference between being sexually attracted to somebody and being romantically attracted to somebody. Would you agree, Layman?
Yeah, I mean, because it is a question of why that. Because if you're, it depends on what kind of show you're making. Because what's interesting about like modern cartoons, with all the talk about having the LGBT characters, the people who are pushing it are the creators themselves and not the executives, because the executives are very hesitant. Even the executives are still hesitant about having that in the cartoon.
Yeah, it's not like they're homophobic or anything like that. It's just they are scared of international pulling their funding, because in Leah C's video about how it was the fight of LGBT representation in shows, um she talks about how the network predicted how Steven Universe's quality would have dropped if they went through the gay wedding, and the network was right, and it exactly happened. I was really disappointed hearing that, because Rebecca Sugar sacrificed the quality and Steven Universe for a wedding. In my personal opinion, doesn't really count as representation, proper representation.
Although to be fair, Steven Universe, the sacrificing quality on Steven Universe is like saying you sacrifice meat in order to have a steak, because the art quality of Steven Universe has always been hit or miss. But yeah, it is a because I like what. Are you familiar with Razor Fist?
Razor
Razor Fist, the Rageaholic.
Razor Fest? No, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, well, basically, he's a guy who has like the '90s rock star persona, and he comments on like video games and its culture and stuff. And he recently had a private stream, a private stream on unauthorized TV, where he talks about how. Someone asked him, "Is there such like the associating Antifa with the LGBT rights, if that's going to affect the LGBT movement?" And he's pointing out the fact that I don't really believe that the support for LGBT has really shifted at all in since the 1920s or 1930s. Because on the one hand, while people will publicly admit that they're pro LGBT and like I love my gay son, at the end of the day, in their private moments, they're going to still feel how they're going to feel. And he's certain that people have always felt this way, and it's only like we've created situation where people are basically required to admit that they support LGBT, but they can't really admit how they really feel.
Yes. On the subject of not admitting how you feel about LGBT, you heard of Dwayne Wade's son Zion turning into a daughter, a girl. Sorry, Zaya.
Zaya.
Yeah, Dwayne Wade's son.
What? So what happened? Was this a show? Was this a interview or
interview on Ellen DeGeneres? I really don't know by celebrities at all.
What was the person?
A person?
Could you repeat the situation to me? I don't know what this situation is.
Yes, Dwayne Wade had a son called Zion, and Gabrielle Union took him to a pride parade, and he came out to his parents as transgender, and they talked about it on Ellen's show, and people were supportive. But Lil Boozy, a rapper, he made a video, what I found really correct, saying don't cut his ick off. I don't want to say the word here,
right.
But you know what
the word is. Don't cut his ick off. He's still 12 years old. He hasn't made his final decisions yet, and how it was very wrong for him to choose that lifestyle at an early age, because it made a lot of sense. Kids are not allowed to vote. They can't drink. They can't drive. They can't go out on the street by themselves. They cannot be out after a certain time. They kind of make decisions like voting for their presidential candidate.
Yeah, the question of transitioning, especially on children, because you can't kids are in a developmental state pretty much all the way until their 20s. Like your brain is never fully developed until your 20s, and to say that kids can go through hormone therapy and that transitional surgery, which is not a surgery. Let's be honest, it's not a surgery. It's chopping up the human body to make it look like the other sex. Let's be honest, it's not positive transition.
But again, Lil Boozy was on point. You can look for the video, Lil Boozy on Dwayne Wade's son. Yeah, he was very on point. He was very direct. I don't think Lil Boozy is technically Christian. I might be wrong on that. Again, I don't know my celebrities. I was really surprised when I found out Chris Pratt was a Christian.
Oh yeah.
He was very on point. About how children should not have that decision, because adults are still questioning about it, still uncertain about it. How much more children?
Yeah, it's something that children should not like. This is a fad that should not be infected on children, because children are still in a developmental state. Like I said, they're still developing, and let's face it, the parents are pushing the kids into it to make themselves more modern and more moral or moderate. They're basically virtue signaling to their children, and that's just disgusting.
Yes, using your child to say, "Oh, look at me, I'm very progressive. Oh, look at me, I'm very into it." See, this is not. If you're gonna be progressive, if you're gonna be that, then go all for it. If you're going to be LGBT, I really don't care. I'm gonna say this. Christopher got mad at me saying, "Would you hire anybody that is LGBT?" I said, "Why not? Because your sexuality doesn't mean anything to me. It's the job, what you're doing. Like, if you're grocery store, I don't see how being gay affects that." But back to the animation, back to cartoons animation. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's a good thing to be celebrated. I'm not a big fan of the Owl House. I heard all these allegations of it being satanic. I wasn't a big fan of it anyway, but it having LGBT characters is not really surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny that the first things that people got freaked out by it was that the witchcraft imageries. I mean, this is a post in a post Harry Potter era where you think that people would not be freaked out by the satanic panic or witch panic of cartoons, but yeah, it's almost like par for the course at this point. It's almost at this point, cartoons not only have to have gay characters, but they have to have prom episodes.
Yeah, I really don't get that. How many? I could name a lot of cartoons had prom episodes. SpongeBob. What else?
Kipo, Owl House, and even Amphibia. The best cartoon right now, Amphibia, had technically a prom episode, but at least they were clever about it, because the couple said, "This is dumb. Let's get the heck out of here."
Yeah, I saw your post on that, and you said in a Facebook post, "Does every single bully character has to be a lesbian?"
Yeah,
I liked that post and I responded to it saying, if that was true, then the bully at my institution, we should get together. I guess that's what.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no reason why Luce and Amity have to be lovers, because they could just be they could just been best friends after their reconciliation. But of course, now they have to be lovers at this point, or no, they're not like lovers. It's implied that like it's like that Amity like really like is not going to confess her feelings to Luce, but I can only hope that they're never actually going to have to go that farther with that. But you just know they're going to. You just know they're just going to take that next further step.
So, ArtisticLayman, do you believe that the Owl House is satanic?
There's a lot of bizarre imagery in it. I can't say. I don't think it's satanic though, because the thing about magic is that the whole point of why you don't want people to engage in magic is not just because you'll get in touch with the evil spirits, but also because it'll distract you from your real life, which is actually a metaphor. Which is actually an interesting point that the Owl House touches on. Because on the one hand, Luce is a person who doesn't really relate to the real world, but you just know at the back of your mind she's going to have to, like, until the last episode that came out, you just know she's going to have to go back to the real world eventually. But of course, now with the new episode, she may never have to, which is another topic for another time.
Can you hold on? I have to switch to the tripod. Hold on.
Okay, let me see let me check the comments section. Do you know why gay cartoons have such an emphasis on prom? It's because the character proms they couldn't take in the same dates. They couldn't take it to their dates. Yeah, that probably makes sense. Yes.
Yes, sorry, I was away.
Yeah. So, but the question was, the Owl House being satanic. I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I mean, I highly doubt that. I mean, people can practice for drawing glyphs and being surprised that their paper doesn't turn to like a magic power.
Yeah, Little Light Studios talked about it.
Yeah, yeah, their take is so dated. Honestly, it's almost like they're still living in the 90s where hello.
Yes.
Yeah, their take on it is so dated. It's almost like they're still living in the 90s when the religious right was still relevant.
Yeah, they're the modern deception of a generation with Phil Phillips.
Yeah,
that special.
Yeah, the same people who thought there were satanic images in the original He-Man.
He-Man and She-Ra. Yeah, they're like the modern deception of a generation. They're taking things from fiction and applying it to the real world where it doesn't apply. When you have Christians that willing to think like Holden Hartman, another Christian that deserves more praise. He analyzed their videos about that video of Marvel not Satan's Endgame about how it's ridiculous, and he just made them look like fools.
Yeah, that's a level of cringe that Christians really need. The Christian world really needs a better class of critic, and that kind of criticism, it's so pointless. I mean, I know there's a stereotype of Christians being cringy, but that's a level of cringe we shouldn't be engaging in anymore.
Not at all. And they did a post about LGBT representation, saying how LGBT is a minority and how we're seeing more LGBT representation. And they're saying how we will ever see a Christian on a Disney screen. Well, I don't know what kind of alternate reality they're living in, but have they seen Captain America?
Yeah, there's only one God, man. There's only one God, ma'am. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Yes, they refuse to recognize him. I point them out. They're saying they're ducking. They hate criticism. They don't like criticism. They're really immature. Some of their videos are really good. Like Gender Babylon is a really good video, but some of their response to criticism is very childish, saying thank you to the haters for getting us to 400k. Well, in reality, Holden Hartman had them get to that level, and he has more subscribers than them, and he has more total views than them, so.
Yeah, they're following them for the same reason I follow the Young Turks political channel. Just to see what nonsense they're going to say this week.
The irony. But I cut those people out of my viewing circle. If they lied there, how much more times they have lied? People like you, Holden Hartman, Bevelyn Betty, who else? And Officer Tatum. All of them are. You're conservative, right?
Yeah.
conservative. Officer Tatum's a conservative. Jericho Green, conservative. Beverly Betty, the same lady that paint over the Black Lives Matter mural, also conservative. I don't know Holden Hartman's political stance, but I don't think it's technically important to the things that he's doing. Yeah. So what we need is more critics like you, all of you, to address things and see things as, oh, this is LGBT, it's automatically satanic, it's automatically of the devil. But really and truly, why there's so many LGBT for my final statement is not because they want to normalize this behavior. It's not because of that, because they're following the money. In my opinion, they're following the money.
Oh, like what? Oh, so you think there's you think there's a market for this kind of stuff, or?
Yes, because in Leia C's video, she says being progressive is not profitable or after a while ago, and I think she has a point there, because as you said, Shiva was not a lesbian. I will bet my I have pet on a platter. She was not a lesbian back.
Yeah, not only was she not a lesbian, she was actually He-Man's sister, and she was relevant to the He-Man universe. But now they've made her into something completely different.
He-Man is nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
and she's also a lesbian, and they age her down, which I kind of liked. I think she's more relatable that way. But she was not a lesbian back then, because if they made her a lesbian back in the 80s, it would have been rejected. It would have been pulled from stations. It would have been not received as well as it is now.
Oh yeah. Look at even the comment section points out that you know the TV show X-Men and Nightcrawler. The character Nightcrawler from the X-Men.
I'm aware of him.
Yeah. She in one episode he finds out the story of his mother and why she abandoned him, and she points out the fact that Nightcrawler says, "I pray that he prayed that he would be able to forgive his mother for trying to kill him." Like that was a really explicit. Yeah, he was a very explicit Christian character, and he's praying for the strength to show grace to show to her. And wow, that could never get made. That could never get made today.
Oh no, at all. But that's my last point. They're following the money. They are not trying to. Seriously, the progressive movement, the progressive left, is just something. Is just added bonus. Because if progressivism was not profitable, none of these stations would have done it. None of it. We don't even see it now.
Well, I don't think it's... The thing is, I don't think it is profitable. Because, are you familiar with the phrase, go woke, go broke?
Go woke, woke. I heard of it.
Basically, the axiom is the more progressive or more woke is on a subject, like being more pro-gay, pro-leftist, the more likely it's going to fail. And there is, and it's not, even though it's not like codified a rule, there seems to be a situation where, because the more you try to make propaganda, like leftist propaganda, the more your product's going to fail. The more your product is going to go bankrupt.
Well, can you give me a scenario, because I don't really see that. I'm just seeing the sales going up from there since Cug of the Creek introduced their first non-binary character. So I see nothing but support. 1 million moms, or some nickname 1 million morons. Yeah,
I actually don't...
They do petitions against LGBT.
What's that?
They do petitions against LGBT stuff, family friendly. And it's very strange to me how they're trying to command a circular channel with their own views to line up with Christian views, which doesn't make any sense to me. It's like an atheist group signing a petition to have a Christian character removed from a Christian network cartoon.
Yeah. But honestly, I don't really follow Craig of the Creek, because I saw a couple episodes of it. It's a more
extraordinary.
It's a self-aware version of Recess. Are you familiar with Recess?
Recess?
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
yeah. It's basically Hogan. It's
Yeah.
basically it's a cartoon version of a cartoonified version of Hogan's Heroes, where kids on an elementary playground have these little like schoolyard schemes, and they play them out like in military precision.
Oh,
It's very funny, and I've always found it very hilarious. But Craig of the Creek kind of reminds you of that, except you can never tell where the line between their make-believe and the real scenario blurs, because there's always these moments where I'm going to pretend handcuffs on you, but then they're conforming to their beliefs. But there's always like this implied notion that they're all just make-believe and all pretending, so it's hard to really emphasize with the story going on.
So, well, that's basically it exactly. Yes. Trump 2020, what else? Jesus matters. Don't support Black Lives Matter. What else I need to say? Fight against the LGBT agenda, they shall not win. Biden cheated.
And what's even worse, not only can they not win, they cannot be entertaining either. That would help. That would help.
Joe Biden?
No, that would help. Like the LGBT, if they were at least entertained, they at least have some point. But now it's almost like they're working. It's almost like people joke about how cartoons are basically a pet project for progressives.
It's true. It's very true. But I like to leave everybody with this. Anybody that's LGBT, that's still here. Surprisingly, we do not hate you. We don't want to see you burning in hell. We just want you to read the scripture of God and let God speak to you. We're not we may be against your lifestyle, but we're not against your life.
Whether or not you think your lifestyle is your life is something you have to work out.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Thank you for having me on, ArtisticLayman.
And thank you so much for wanting to have a chat. It's nice to be able to talk to fellow Christians.
Yeah.
And so with that said, I guess I could cut off to the credits. And any last words?
Yes. Trump 2020, Jesus matters.
Amen on both counts. All right. All right, everyone. We'll take care. And here goes the credits. Don't forget to like, dislike, share, comment, subscribe, and all the other good stuff. Until next time, may the will of God be your way.